Hi, I'm Dino Tripodis. Tonight on Whiskey Business, in my opinion, one of the funniest people you may know, and if you don't, you will tonight, Bill Arrundale on Whiskey Business. And welcome to Whiskey Business, the podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey. I'm very excited about our guest tonight, who's sitting across from me as we speak. Comedian, raconteur.
What's a raconteur?
A raconteur is something you will never be.
Fair enough. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Bill Arrundale, who I've been meaning to get on this podcast for 2 years. And then we were supposed to have him on last week, and then the
God intervened. God intervened.
God intervened again. I take most of the responsibility because I said I want you on the podcast, and then things would happen, and I would forget, and so forth. But then I was reminded again when our good friend Sumak Tagalkar was on the show, and then we said then we made the big commitment. We actually called you out on that particular podcast.
Shout out to Bill.
And made it happen. So I'm thrilled that you're here. Of course, Greg Hansberry over there, John Whitney, Chip Cassell off mic. And
Hi, everybody.
Talk about divine intervention. He couldn't make the podcast last week, and we had to cancel the podcast last week because of the weather and the power outages. Are you feeling better?
Yeah, I had bronchitis. I completely lost my voice. I couldn't talk at all. I was like,
which would have been ideal for
you to
be
on. We missed that night to get on.
Yeah, you would have loved it. You guys would have been so happy.
Are you feeling better though?
Much better, yes.
Good,
I'm finishing up my my doses of amoxicillin, and everything is coming along nicely.
A lot of people on the amoxicillin, but you prompted me to go get my flu shot and my COVID booster finally because I've been procrastinating.
It's worth it. You should do it.
How old are you, Bill? If you don't mind me asking.
I just turned 54.
54. So you are technically a senior citizen.
I don't think it's quite there yet. I think I might have another year, maybe.
I think so. I don't know. Maybe.
AARP. Come on.
AARP.
Yeah, well, that's true. We do. I think we do have that. But
yeah,
I mean, I remember when I was like 36, maybe I looked it up for middle age. I'm like, Jesus, already?
Yeah.
So yeah, I probably am a senior citizen.
Yeah,
I don't have that golden Buckeye card.
I don't have a golden.
It's like
Buckeye
free movies,
card.
Man. Free parking. You should look into it.
You know what? I used to do a joke about AARP, but you know now that I have it, there is a shit ton of stuff that they offer up that's actually pretty good value.
Right.
You know, for stuff. But the reason they bring it up because they said at the CVS I was getting the senior flu shot. How is that any different than the regular flu shot? and he kept saying to me over and over again, now you realize this is the high dose flu shot. I'm like, okay, just do it. And he goes, okay, which arm? I go, left arm. And I go, well, I'm here. Can I get the COVID one? You sure you want them both today? I'm like, yeah, I want them both. And he goes, the other arm? I go, no, same arm. Why would I let both arms be sore?
He wanted you to say butt. He was waiting for you to say butt, Jake.
He's like, whoa, somebody's all hopped up on Centrum Silver today, aren't they?
Exactly. Man, there's so many questions I have for you. Because I want to go back to the beginning, and I don't
say hi to Gatto's first.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Yeah, I'm sorry. And the business.
Thanks to Gatto's Pizza.
Gatto's Pizza. It's our first Gatto's Pizza of the new year.
Thanks, Gatto's. Gotta get a Gatto's.
Gotta get a Gatto's. Right here in the heart of Clintonville, over on Indianola.
Very good.
They deliver. You can go in, sit down. They do catering now.
Oh wow.
As well. So
my second wedding. I know what I'm doing.
All right.
It's not just pizzas; it's subs as well.
First of all, you'll never get divorced. And secondly,
nobody
would be stupid enough for you to have a second marriage.
I'm gonna say your second wedding or her second wedding.
Yeah, hers. I'll be caterer. I'll be the caterer for her second wedding.
Not happening. And of course, the other business as well.
Whiskey Business is a podcast, not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey. Yes. Thanks for subscribing on your favorite podcasting app, whatever that is. Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast. Whatever, SoundCloud.
Wherever you get them.
Thanks for rating, reviewing, subscribing, and also spread the word. Share this with your friends who love whiskey, who love comedians, who love just general good banter.
Okay.
All right.
With a nice
When you do that, when you do that,
See that on
you
YouTube,
really
ladies
sell
and
it.
gentlemen.
For those of you who are watching on video, yes. For those
Which
of you who
reminds
listen to
me-
audio, Hansberry gave the old swing of the arm.
Yeah.
Just
Great
to-
banter.
Just to sell it. And bring
Whiskey
it
Business
home.
is on YouTube. Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis.
Correct, yes.
On YouTube. Yeah.
The unedited.
The unedited version,
Yeah.
which
All the ugliness.
yeah, all
Smash
the
that
ugliness.
subscribe.
Smash.
Hit that bell.
Hit it, please do.
Thanks, Evergreen.
Yep. And also, we were just I told them that I would actually mention them as well. Well, we were listed as the number 6 in the top 60 whiskey podcasts you must listen to. And we were number 9 in the top 25 evergreen podcasts you need to listen to.
Got them fooled.
And shame on me. Do your research, Dean. Do your research. I will find the actual name of the people that.
That's okay. Greg will cut all this audio out, but the video we'll be able to watch you
You'll be
scrolling.
able to watch me just scrolling.
Doom
down.
scrolling.
Yeah, you
Look.
can listen
senior
to
moment.
Edith Keeler's Night Out. What's it called?
Edith Keeler's Night Out? No.
Edith
The
Keeler's
Star Trek podcast
Yeah.
that's kicking whiskey business's ass?
Yeah, that one.
Edith Keeler's Edge of Forever Bar and Grill.
Yeah, it's
Available
great.
only on YouTube.
It is great. It really is.
Also, The
It's
Empty
fun.
Coffin is my paranormal podcast, Bill.
What is it? I'm
The
sorry.
Empty Coffin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought I saw something on Instagram for it.
See? That's me.
That's him.
I listened to today's episode.
Because
Or
you go by
yesterday's episode.
Halloween Hansberry on there,
That's
and
it.
I'm like, why is he still doing Halloween? It's January.
It's January.
But now that makes
Now
sense.
it makes sense.
Yep.
And I don't know how to. I forgot my password. I can't change it.
I will find them and give them their due credit a little bit later on. Speaking of podcasts, like I said, there's so many questions I have for you. Let's just start with the basic one first, because I
Okay.
think you were doing both of these things at the same time when you were in the throes of stand-up comedy, when it was your only gig and your only profession at one point. When did you actually start?
Boy, that would be back in '98, I think. At the old Northburg Tavern at Ohio State. It was like right across the street from Ohio State. And I went down there with the front and just watched it. And then I came back the next week and just did like a couple of 10 hacky jokes. And then someone in the back of the room yelled out "hack" while I was on stage.
Nice.
And then I
Congratulations. Baptism by fire.
Yeah, and I thought, well, I'll show you because I'll come back next week and I will have read the newspaper before I get here. And so that's what I did.
You did. You read the newspaper before you went
Well,
there?
and that's I pulled all my jokes off of the
Office
news.
Dispatch
It was-
or
it
Yeah.
was- so you were current.
Yeah, I mean, like if you ever wonder what Jay Leno would be like with type 2 diabetes, I mean, that was me on stage. You know, it's like, have you guys seen this? Do you know about this?
But you know, that was kind of a throwback. And now, granted, I remember Mort Saul used to actually have a paper in front of him. Legendary
Oh,
comedian
yeah.
Mort Saul would take it right out of the paper and deliver. You know, he looked like he was reading the paper, and he would just make his commentaries on it. So, were you working? I mean, had a job when you first started and doing stand up?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Everybody did.
I think at the time I was working at Kinko's, way back when it was called Kinko's, and before it became FedEx office. So that was doing that as a day job, and then once I started making a couple bucks doing comedy, I mean, it was great. It's the best part-time job you'll ever get.
Right.
Full-time, things get a little different there, but a lot of highs, a lot of lows.
Yeah, let's talk about the highs. I mean, obviously, let's talk about the highs that made you think that this is what I'm gonna be doing for the rest of my life.
Oh, geez. The first time I got to work professionally at a club, I won the local comedy contest at the Funny Bone, and then I got to start emceeing there. And I went from like 2 a year to every month, and then sometimes twice a month. So, I mean, I was working there quite a bit. Then I got to do some of the other Funny Bones. But back then, it was before social media. So, if I wanted to go to a club and audition, I would, go out there and do a 10-minute set and then drive back that night.
Right.
But, I mean, I always enjoyed doing it. And there were plenty of times when I rolled into town to do a show with just enough gas to get there. And maybe a pocket full of change left before I got paid.
Right.
Praying to God that the check would clear the next morning. There was once when it didn't, and
Oh wow.
I was, forget it. It was terrible.
Well, it was terrible, but there was also something very cool about it.
When you get
as
an
well.
entire room of people just
Yeah.
hanging on your every word,
Yeah.
and you do that setup, and then you wait for the punch, and it's just dead silent. Then you drop that punchline, and they all just blow up at once. I mean, it's just an incredible feeling.
You can't put a price on that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if the check bounces the next day, at least you can go back and say, I got paid the other way. But yeah, I want to talk about your family and where you're at now, because I know that's a very important part of your life. But I also want to combine two things right now, since we are podcasting, Whiskey Business Podcasting. In the middle of, while you were doing stand up, we both worked with a dear friend of ours, Dan Swartout, who's been on the podcast many times, and you guys actually started to do a podcast before podcasts were even a thing. Now, I've talked to Swarty and gotten his perspective on those days, but I've always wondered what Bill thought about those days as well. Now, remind us again what the podcast was about and how you guys did it and got it out there.
I remember I was out on the road somewhere, and I was in Indiana, and I got to wherever I was going, and the show canceled because everything just got snowed out. And I was snowed in. I was stuck at the hotel. So I'm reading USA Today, and huge cover story on the front is about the Don and Drew podcast, which at the time was like the biggest podcast out there. And I read the article, and then I called Dan, and I said, we should do this because this is what we do all the time. When the other one was on, a long drive, we'd call and talk to each other and goof around and all that. And then when we were in the same car together, it was that to a much higher degree.
Right.
So I said, we might as well record this, put it out there, and see if anybody likes it. And that's how we got started.
Mm-hmm. And what was the name of it?
The Bill and Dan Show.
The Bill and Dan Show.
Yeah, it was going to be Dan and Bill, but Bill and Dan sounded better.
Right.
So we went with that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how long did it last?
I want to say the better part of 6 or 7 years, maybe.
Yeah, and didn't it get some recognition? And didn't
It did.
Didn't it get some?
Yeah, we got a mention on CBS News. And then Heavy.com, they went in and did a big, like the top 10 comedy podcasts. We were up there with Mark Maron and Jimmy Pardo's podcast, which, I mean, these guys were, and even Maron, even still, well, actually Pardo still does his. These are, the giants of comedy podcasting.
Right.
It just doesn't get better than these guys.
Right.
So just to even be mentioned in the same article as them, it was.
I mean, granted, there
huge
weren't
compliment.
as many people in the pool at that time.
Right.
So, but
It was a
still,
low bar, yeah.
No, not so much a low bar. Just not a lot of, like I said, not a lot of people in the pool. So, if you were decent, which it sounds like you guys were, you had a chance to get elevated. So my question is, if you're hanging out in that rare air, which is top 10 comedy podcast, why stop?
Dan had decided that he wanted to go into politics. I didn't know this till after we had pretty much gone on hiatus. I mean, I knew that he was going to start, I think working for a judge. I had no idea he was going to try to, go for mayor or whatever else. So he obviously didn't want his name associated with any dumb shit that came out of my mouth.
Okay, but my point being, and I understand that and I can appreciate it, but much like anything out on the internet, the dumb shit's already out there to come back and haunt you if anybody really wanted to.
Yeah, and we actually had an offer to monetize the podcast. It was on a website that was sponsored by clipsforsale.com, which I know you know, Hansberry, what it is. It's clips, the number 4 sale, and that's basically these are adult clips.
Okay.
Dan, of course, wanted nothing to do
gotcha.
with it. So I just did my own thing on there and made a few bucks. It wasn't, anything big.
I'll give you my password later.
I don't want it.
But I think if we had kept it going, I think we really could have gone somewhere with it. I mean, a lot of those podcasts are on, big podcast networks like
Evergreen.
What's it called again? Evergreen. Yeah, sorry.
Evergreen, yeah.
Or Sirius XM. There's a lot of networks for that. But I think we could have done something, which is sure. And the best part about it was we only had as guests just the local lunatics in the comedy scene.
Right.
They were our guests. We never had someone passing through town who was a name or
You didn't get
well-known.
Obama like Mark Maron. You didn't get people like that on.
Oh, I wish.
on your podcast. You got regular folk like like us.
Yeah.
We get regular people doing regular things. Every once in a while, somebody of note will come along. But
What year did you say this was?
I want to say we started around 2005.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah, that's back there.
that's still when I had an
in the
iPod.
infancy.
Yeah, it was on,
during the infancy. Yeah.
I think
you had to get it from
Podfeed or
iTunes.
something, or Podbean.
Yeah, because I remember Dan saying it was a process to get it out. You had
Oh,
to,
yeah.
there was as far as the technical aspect of it, it took like a series of things to get it out there amongst
Yeah,
the
because
people.
Apple didn't really recognize podcasts. This is, and I can't even believe it when I read the article, but one of the pioneers of it was Adam Curry, the former MTV VJ. What? But yeah, he came up with this system to, you record your audio, you put it up in some sort of cloud server, then people could download it, individually. But now it's a much more streamlined, simple process than it was back then.
It's definitely evolved and continues to evolve. I always make the joke that in the last couple of years, the shift has been to most people are finding their podcasts and releasing their podcasts with a video component on YouTube. That's the big thing, and we did that. We brought after year one, we brought John Whitney in and started to do that, and we just don't understand the algorithms.
Yeah,
and
I
everything,
don't understand.
and everything that goes along with it.
I think it's the smoking and the drinking that probably, they put a throttle on us.
Do you think the smoking and not the drinking? There's a thousand podcasts out there drinking. You'll say the smoking will probably do, which
I
is
think
why
the
if you
smoke.
notice I'm not smoking because I made a promise to him that I would stop smoking on the podcast because one, it bothers him and that's enough for me. But also he seems to think that the smoking deterred people.
Well, no, actually, I've heard rumor
Rumor. Go
that
ahead. You tell the truth. I have thick skin.
social media will basically put a throttle on people who can see it. Like your video will go into like somebody's stream or somebody's
For You page.
yeah. And if you're smoking and doing things like that, or even cussing, actually is one of those things that could lead you not to be in as many feeds as it could be.
Okay.
We don't
Yeah,
cuss.
they don't want smoking interfering with the drinking message of
Right.
the podcast.
With the drinking message. There's no
the
message.
cussing, or the
It's a
cussing.
good pour and a good
Vaping.
conversation, which also is a perfect segue into tonight's guest bottles. As the January clean out continues. Not a dry January.
Right,
I don't
no,
mean it
it's
that
pretty
way.
damn wet.
I mean that taking bottles that have never been on the show and that only have just a little bit left and showcasing them. And these are two beauties that if they were full today, these are Angel's Envy Cask Strength port finish, port wine finishes, cask strength barrels that if they were full bottles today on the secondary market, this is the secondary market. Right. They could be going for anywhere between $795 and $1,100 a bottle, which
Are you
is
shitting me?
ridiculous.
That's
I would never pay that
No.
for this.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know really not much about whiskey, but I've already learned something, is that it apparently can get sold in glass bottles. I usually
Big plastic one at the gas
buy it in
station.
a plastic bottle, or I'll still pour it in my hand and I try to drink it before I get out of there.
Do you even like whiskey on a regular basis?
Oh, yeah. Me and Canadian Mist go way back.
Oh my God, Canadian Mist.
Hey, it's $4.99.
I know it's $4. I know how much
we have
it
that with your
costs.
mom?
No, my mom liked Canadian Club.
Oh,
when she would want a highball.
My mom liked that
Either
too.
Canadian Club or Seagram 7 was,
Yeah.
honey, make me a highball, and that'd be one of the two things that we would,
Where's my
the
drink?
go-tos. You know what? I might, since we're talking old school whiskey, I may break out. I'll let you guys have a little taste of a bottle of Four Roses from the 1970s that would
Dusty.
belong to my grandfather. Yeah, I already opened up. But you can't see. You won't find it there. I got
It
it.
didn't kill him, did it?
No, it didn't kill him, but my grandfather drank a lot. Yeah.
Not that bottle.
Mine too.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about your parents for a second. Tell me about childhood. Tell me about upbringing. Tell me, were you a funny kid?
Well, I grew up in Akron.
Okay, that's hysterical.
Exactly.
How could you not have a sense of humor?
Yeah, it was. We had the the one affordable track housing joint on the entire street. It was a fairly middle class neighborhood, I guess. But we had the one shit box that, everyone kind of flipped off as they drove by. But I grew up there. Both of my parents smoked heavily. Usually it felt like, a dream sequence when I would just walk through the house because there's just so much smoke in the air. And,
Oh my God, I had that same
and it was awful.
experience.
Like I would have to wash my clothes, put them in a bag, and then seal the bag and then keep them so I could keep the cigarette smoke out of them for when I went to school.
Wow, you were that cognizant of it even back then?
I was because other people were. That's what made me so cognizant about it. And then when I would
what
walk
grade
in,
is this even? Where you smell
like 7th, 8th grade.
and people are saying you smell like cigarette smoke?
Oh yeah. And then I would walk in because they thought I smoked. I'm like, I don't smoke, no way. But I would go into other people's houses, and I'm like, why can you breathe in here? I can see everything clearly. There are white surfaces in here, not like a dull yellow. And but no, it was. I wouldn't throw the word happy on to my childhood experience. I guess it was very tense or serious. All the time. Like my dad had a job that he hated.
What was his job?
He used to make brakes for DC-10s. He worked for Goodyear Aerospace.
Okay. So he had a good job, but he hated it.
Yeah, well, my mother was a private nurse, and then when he got the job with Goodyear, he made her quit, because back then the man supported the family, and you can't have two incomes. That's crazy.
No.
So we just subsisted on the one income, and it was just brutal,
It's what Trump's shooting for right now. The man to work and the woman to cook.
Yeah.
And have as many babies as you can.
My mom would play this nasty trick on us where we would get, a $2 allowance, and again, this is like 1979.
All right.
And then when we were all in the car after dropping my dad off work, we'd go to Wendy's to get dinner, but she would only buy for herself. And if we wanted a kid's meal, which just happened to be $2, then we would have to give her the $2.
From your allowance.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. If you really
Even back
think
then,
about
I'm
it.
like, that's not right. That's messed up.
Brilliant lesson in economics.
So you said
Yeah.
kids or your siblings?
I do. I had two sisters. The middle one passed away, and I still have another sister.
Yeah. Younger, older?
Younger. They were both younger.
Both younger.
Yeah.
Younger. Huh. So not the happiest of childhoods. It's funny.
No.
It's funny. You talk to most comedians and seldom do I come across one that had a happy childhood, including myself. And yet they end up diving into this profession that is about making people happy and giving them something to laugh at and to walk away and remember.
Yeah, same thing with like rock stars. Kurt Cobain couldn't have been Kurt Cobain if he, went to a private school and.
I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I mean, every comedian really deep down is a broken person who wants that attention, or I don't want to say love, but that immediate gratification from the audience. I mean, all of us do, and even the ones who convince you that they're not. It's a facade. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But we all need that. We hunger for that acceptance by other people. Not that other people had a bad childhood or whatever, but but I find that to be pretty common in pretty much all the comedians I ever met.
Yeah, broken is a.
It might be a tough word.
It's
but
a
I
tough
mean,
word. It's a tough word. Damaged,
fractured.
Yeah, fractured, broken, and then again, and also broken. There's some we've met some who have been broken and who never made it past broken. Stayed broken.
Right.
We both have known comedians through the years who have taken their own lives and had issues with things that they couldn't get past. So some people have stayed broken. I'd say fractured for me, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
When I watch your stand up, it's very self-deprecating.
At least it starts out that way.
It starts out that way. But as we sit here and talk about childhood and not happy childhood and parents and so forth and so on, your bits, which I've always said this about myself. I have the longest fucking setups in the world. I never get to it. But your stuff is set up and deliver pretty quickly. Have you ever thought, and you and I have actually discussed this, it was a couple years ago. I think it was after the premise, actually, that we discussed about the fact that you were thinking about. See, I remember you were thinking about doing a show of sorts, and longer stories, longer bits of humor mixed in with the honest and the serious. And at the time that we had that conversation, I felt that you were very sincere about wanting to get that story out in the form of performing that you are comfortable with.
Yeah, I have thought about that, and I go back to it from time to time. The big thing I have is anytime I start a new thing, whether it's a writing project or video or something, I get to a certain point, and then I start hearing my father's voice, and he's like, "This isn't any good. People aren't going to like this.
Why does that still haunt you like that? I mean, and me too, for that matter. But why? I want to know your opinion.
Yeah, I guess because I wanted that. I don't want to say love, but acceptance, or even just a general tolerance, I think, from my father. I remember this to this day. When I was in kindergarten, there was it was near the Rubber Bowl where the Akron Canton Airport is. There was a stable, and they would have kids come in like once a year, and they would do a thing where you would get to ride the horses or whatever. And I remember they canceled it the morning of, and I was upset about it. And I remember my dad saying, "You're too fat to ride a horse anyway." And I'm like, horses are pretty big. I mean, they pull wagons with people in them.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about getting on a newly born horse, but like an actual. I'll call and see if they have a war horse available, or one of the Clydesdales. Maybe they might be able to.
I'll give you, Dad. Maybe I shouldn't be on a pony, but a horse.
Right. Yeah. But at 5 years old, I mean, it just that sort of thing. But like my dad, we would watch movies together. It was like the one activity we did, and I would watch him out of the corner of my eye for watching something funny. And it was the weirdest thing. Like, he would see something funny, and he'd be like, and then stop, almost like he was going to sneeze. But it's like he wanted to laugh out loud, but just wasn't able to do it.
Because
I don't know.
He just didn't want to expose that emotion.
Yeah. I mean, he had like two modes. It was quiet or angry, and that was it. There was no in between. He might do like a silent chuckle. We used to watch The Jerk, and when the guy gets kicked in the balls, and it's Iron Balls McGinty. I mean, my dad would get floored by watching that, and so I think that really had a big impact on me eventually doing comedy, because I had always told jokes as a kid because I found it a way to get people to stop making fun of me.
Why'd they make fun of you?
Well, because of my weight, or the fact that I smelled like a Marlboro test factory when I would come into school. Those things. And we were in a middle-class neighborhood, but we didn't have a middle-class income. So, growing up, all my friends, they all had allowances and, would get bonuses for good grades. And if I came home with, like on the dean's list, my dad would just say, "That's what you're supposed to do." And then that would be it. When I played Little League, they did the thing where, everybody comes out and they, do a tryout where everyone, plays and practices, and then they go ahead and they pick the teams. And so they announced the teams, and I remember I ran downstairs and I said, "I made the team," and my dad goes, "Everybody makes the team. You just don't know which team you're going to get on." So I just never really got a lot of encouragement from him.
Did you get encouragement from anybody? Did you get it from your mother?
To a point, I did. My mother was definitely better than he was, but like I was very a depressed kid, except when I was with my friends. And every year I would just dread when holidays would come, like Christmas or Thanksgiving, because it meant I had to be with my family all day, and I just didn't want to be with them. Not that I wanted them to, die in a car crash or anything, but I did not want to spend any more time with them than I had to. I joined the Boy Scouts at one point because I heard they go camping sometimes, and then the summer they go for a week. I'm like, "That's great. Get me out of here. I'll sign whatever you want me to sign." So it was just little things like that. Whatever I could do to get out of the house, I did it. And
what age were you when you had that realization? Like, I need to do whatever I need to do to get the hell out of here on a regular basis.
I was going into 7th grade, I think. Or
Okay.
no, I was 6th grade.
6th grade.
Yeah.
That's pretty young. That's
Yeah.
pretty young to come to that realization that me being here is not the best place for me to be on a regular basis.
Yeah. And my dad was always kind of mad that I wasn't like a guy who does things with tools. Like he would try to show me how to change the oil in a car, and I just wanted to go play D&D with my friends. I didn't care about that. I'm like, there's people you can pay to do this. That's their job, is they do that. And then, but he would get upset about that, and if I handed him the wrong tool, I would get yelled at. So now, if we buy anything that needs anything more than 3 steps to put it together, my wife or son will do it because I just freak out.
You give up. Me too. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
IKEA is the worst.
IKEA is the word. I always tell people that when it comes to that skill set, I'm a 6 nail guy. And they go, "What do you mean?" I go, "It takes me. It takes me 6 nails to get one of them in there without bending it or messing anything up to hang something. So everything you see hung up on all these walls, it took an average of 6 nails a piece to get them in there.
See a lot of effort here, Dino.
Before they're all said and done. I don't have that skill set either. And my father was also of it. My father, when we moved to Greece, he built a house by himself, brick by brick, and
made the bricks.
Yeah, he may have gone all Moses-y on us and built the bricks with no straw,
Mud and straw and blood.
but yeah, I never inherited that set, and it did. It made you feel like you were inferior.
Right. I'm like my middle sister. She was just like him, so she would go and would learn all that, and she was his favorite. I got to do more just because I was the oldest, but I mean, if anybody wanted something, she was the one that got it. In fact, her birthday would be in January, and I remember my senior year, I was going to have a party for graduation, and then my sister was complaining that she didn't get to have her 16th birthday party in January. So my dad said, "Well, you can have it the same day Bill has his graduation party."
Man, you gotta share. You gotta
I was like, "Are you
share?
kidding me?"
No. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
It was terrible. Like my grandmother tore him a new one over it, and but my grandmother was always the one who was in my corner.
I lived with my grandparents for 2 years without my mother, father, or sister. Then my sister and mother came back from Greece, and we became a family again. My father stayed, but I lived with my grandparents. My grandmother loved me to death, but so strict and so like you did not want to mess up in her presence with anything. One of my worst memories ever was, and this is how stupid I was, when she sent me to the A&P grocery store and told me to get a cabbage, because she made cabbage rolls, Chip. Cabbage rolls on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And
You got lettuce.
I debated. No, the cabbage and the lettuce are right next to each other.
God.
And I'm like, they both look the same. And I sat there for literally, and didn't want to ask anybody either. Which I debated, and I'm like, I got a 50-50 shot at not pissing off my grandmother if I come home with the right thing. And sure enough, I came home with lettuce. I came home with lettuce.
I'll never make that mistake
And I
again.
thought it was the other one, and I doubted myself. And even back then, I said, go with your gut instinct the first time around.
That's why you can't eat cabbage.
Stuffed
Cabbage
that's
now.
what but it's interesting you say that your grandmother was your savior, because my grandmother was a savior in a way, in that she took care of me and my grandfather as well. But some of the stuff that some of the law that she laid down was very strict and difficult to move, breathe, whatever the case might be. Which leads me to a very interesting kind of connection, because you talk about your dad.
And I wanted to say, and I don't mean to cut you off or anything before we go further. He wasn't an all bad guy. He was always there to help neighbors and things like that. And I had an aunt who was in a very abusive marriage. And I remember my mom and my sister were at my grandmother's for the week. And I was asleep. It was like 10 o'clock at night. My dad flipped on the light, picked me up, put me in a car, and then we drove to Pennsylvania to this bar that my uncle would go to. And my father left me in a car with the windows locked, then went inside and broke his arm, and then came back and got in the car, and we drove back to Akron.
Damn.
And I didn't know. I was like, what the hell's going on? And then he finally told me. But I was like, thank you for including me in your.
He cared enough to not leave you
Yeah.
at home alone.
Right.
Well,
You're-
not to leave him home alone, but also to there's a reason he not just to leave him alone, because I'm sure there was somebody there to watch you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
my father would never stand for someone hurting a
person.
woman. Or in fact, I had a friend who lived just up the street, and his father, this is his stepfather, would just hit this kid in the middle of everybody. They were playing catch in the street. He missed the ball. Guy took the ball and smacked him right in the face with it. And then at one point, he did something when I was staying over there for the night, and I came home in the middle of the night, and my dad went up there and had a talk with him. And it was the last time I had ever seen anything like that. But, it was different back then than it is now. Not that people aren't abused. The kids get abused all the time.
Sure.
But it wasn't something that you really talked about back then.
No, but I'm wondering, just telling that story, did that confuse you? To see how your dad was on a day-to-day basis with you, but then all of a sudden to see this kind of other guy that you saw from time to time that seemingly was doing the right thing in the defense of others, was that confusing?
To a point. I mean, it felt like my father had some sense of morality, or I don't want to say a code necessarily.
A code is a good way to put it. Yeah,
But he always wanted me to be better than he was. And I don't mean to derail whatever your thought was before.
No. Trust me, it's a stream that's going to flow into the same river. You're
All
fine.
right. So when I was in high school, through 9th and 10th grade, I wrestled and I played football. And then when I went into 11th grade, my father came down with like a kidney disease. His kidneys were failing big time.
Was he a drinker?
No, hardly ever drank alcohol, but the only thing he really drank was coffee and Pepsi.
And Canadian Mist.
I wish. No. But that's really, I mean, he drank water now once in a while, but as if we didn't have any Pepsi or coffee, then he would drink water. But he would just get these horrific kidney stones. Like I remember he had to, they said, if you're going to the bathroom, try to urinate into something because it's something we need to analyze. And I guess my father had a coffee can or something. He was upstairs, in the bathroom, the door shut, and I hear him grunting, and I hear this ping all the way downstairs. So I knew it was bad. But it was strange for me. Towards the end of his life, which he didn't live very long. He died at 53.
That's so young.
And I was only 22
That's so young.
when it happened. But at the time he was on dialysis, but he did the home dialysis, which at the time was just you got this big bag and you drained it into your system, and then I don't know 6 hours later you drained it back out again, and we had a long-haired cat who would always shed everywhere, and so he was getting an infection like every 6 to 8 weeks. At that one time he went to the hospital, and after a couple days he just fell into a coma, and he was in the coma for close to a month. And then we had this big family meeting. His sister had come in, and my mom's sisters came, and we had to discuss, what was going on. And they all were like, let's, pull the plug. And I was the only one that argued against it.
Why?
I don't know. I just felt like we were giving up on him, and they made a decision eventually. It was like 45 minutes. I was arguing with all of them, and then that afternoon he had passed away, and I was upset. I think deep down more because I don't know. We never got that chance to really duke it out. Mm-hmm. It was just kind of I don't want to say rite of passage, but I really wanted to just confront him over things,
There were things that you didn't get a chance to address.
And to see, someone he was this big hulking guy, and just by the end he was down to like 185 pounds, and he was a skeleton with skin, basically. It was tough for me to process, and I didn't really have anyone I could turn to. My grandmother, obviously, but it just wasn't the same. And none of my other friends, their fathers were all
Grandmother,
alive.
was that your father's mother or your mother's mother?
Oh no, mine. and this story I'm sure informs my father, but his father had emigrated here from England like in 1929, and this guy was a drinker. Drank all the way up until he was 72. They told him to stop. He kept going, and then he was dead like 6 months later. Jeez. He was really abusive to my dad. He, in like the mid-50s, he had beat my dad up really good. And the cops actually came out to the house. So you got to think, how bad did you have to beat a kid in 1955 for the authorities to get involved?
Right.
And they took him to jail. I don't think he was in there very long, but at that point, my father ran away and didn't speak again for just many, many years afterwards. But they named me after him, which was fun, especially at 7 years old when we got to go visit his grave. And there was my name on the gravestone. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I have to look forward to. All right.
You feel like you're Ebenezer Scrooge?
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
You're kind of going the Ghost of Christmas Future.
That's funny.
There you see your grave.
Dispute it.
Oh, my God. Wow.
So I don't mean to turn this into a big therapy session, but
No. I find this all fascinating because I'm always curious about the growth of an individual based from where they were started at as a child, how they end up today, and what they've incorporated from the lessons that they learned growing up as an adult, as a teenager, and where they are now, and how they apply to somebody like yourself who now is a father. And I know that being a father is one of the largest and biggest joys of your life. I know that you are so proud of your son and what he's accomplished and what he continues to accomplish. Let's talk about that for a second. I mean,
Sure.
How is that what you've learned through life and how you progressed as an individual? Tell me about fatherhood at this point in your life.
Well, I mean, it happened when I was 29 is when I found out that his mother was pregnant. And I drew weird parallels because my dad was 30 when they had me. I was 30 when we had my son. And we were the same age apart as my father and I. So when I hit my 53rd birthday last year, I was like, let's see how this goes. And then when I finally, as soon as I hit one day past, where he had passed away, I'm like, great, I'm in the clear.
Yeah.
But being a father, it's like you said, it's been the greatest thing that's ever happened to me.
Were you surprised at that? Or did you,
Well, I was terrified.
Terrified, yeah, I was too. I was 21 when I had a daughter. So, yes, what the fuck am I doing?
Well, the big fear is...
I didn't mean to cuss. That's going to affect the stream down the line.
It's true. Our numbers are going down as we speak.
Numbers are going down as we speak.
You just lost a Boy Scout
cigarette.
But you get what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't want to be the kind of father I was. I knew that I wouldn't be, and the reason was not to derail, but when I was 21, I knew that I just didn't want to be the way I was, and that I was always angry, I was always depressed, and if somebody had anything going on, I just took the negative view of it, no matter what. And
Explain that a little bit more. If somebody had something going on, you took the negative view. If somebody else had success, if somebody had...
Well, if somebody had success, or if... it was mostly, I guess, if someone has success, or if they achieve something, I'm like, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. And I felt like I was doing the same thing my father would do.
You're downplaying it, demeaning it.
Right, making it insignificant. And so I decided at that point to go to therapy, which I did for, I think, 2 years. And then when I told my family I was doing it, they mocked me.
Of course they did.
Mercilessly.
Of course they did.
I just went off on all of them. And... I'm sorry. I keep stopping like halfway into a story and remember something I didn't say from before.
That's okay, man.
But
Just let it go.
when I was high school in 11th grade, my father got sick, like I said. So he went on medical retirement because he was basically forced to. So at that point, I stopped playing football and wrestling. And then my senior year of high school, I worked 3 jobs. And the way it worked out is I'd go to school till noon. And then I went to this local butcher shop, and I worked there from 1 to 5. And then at night from 6 to 11, I worked either at a movie theater or this drive-through. People come in and they buy beer or whatever.
Right.
And that's what I did for my senior year. And I think I had 1 day off a week. So on one hand, I was happy that I wasn't at home. But at the same time, I was just handing over money left and right just to try and help out. And
Is that why you did it? Is that why you took the 3 jobs?
it's absolutely why I
Was
did
to
it,
help
yeah.
out? Even
Yeah.
though he was on medical leave, there was just only a certain amount of.
Yeah, I mean, there was no savings whatsoever. I mean,
Right.
all of that money was tied up in McDonald's Flintstone collectible glasses. There was no savings bonds or anything like that. So, but that's what I did my senior year, and my dad was upset because he wanted me to keep playing football, and he said you've got your whole life to make money, and then I countered with, so why not start now? Looking back, I wish I had kept playing football and wrestling, but
Were you good?
I was tired of being the only one of my friends who never had any money. I didn't have a car. I couldn't afford to go to the movies or any of that stuff, and I didn't want to be like that anymore.
But
So
were you a good athlete?
I don't know. Good is a strong word, but I always, anytime I ever got down, I got back up, and I was not I wasn't a good wrestler. I think I was better at playing football than that, but and I think my second year wrestling, I got that most improved trophy, which is you don't suck as bad as you did last year trophy.
Yeah, I remember my favorite was a participant ribbon in
Yeah.
track
Oh,
and
yeah.
field.
Mental attitude. I got a
But
couple mental.
I'm curious. Did you say you were never that great in sports, but did you stay in them because it actually got your father's approval? Was that part of the?
I think that had a lot to do with it. And then I don't know. He just thought that I might be able to go to school for football, but I just wasn't that good. I mean, not even for Akron U, which I think almost anybody can walk onto. But I don't think I would have made that. Whatever the cutoff is, I'm sure I came in just underneath that. But then my father tried to get me to enlist in the Marines, and I was
Really?
actually working out with a Marine recruiter to meet their weight guideline. But then my father took me to see a new movie out called Full Metal Jacket,
Oh no!
That'll talk you out of the military
Yeah.
real quick.
and I thought that guy's in way better shape than I am. I'm just going to try to go to school on my own, and I tried it. I worked full time, and I stuck with it for like a year and a half. But I kept changing my major because I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no.
What'd you start at?
I started with computer science, and then I lowered that to computer programming. And then I forget what I moved it to. I think I just moved it to communications at that point.
Did you graduate? Did you finish?
No, I was there a year and a half.
Year and a half.
That was it. I realized I was just throwing money away without knowing what I was doing. So, but yeah. But going back to my son,
Yeah.
his luckily has been completely different, his life from mine, which I'm ecstatic about.
Which is partly you get to take some credit for that. I mean, you get.
Well, I
to
mean, his
decide-
mother gets credit for it too.
I
But
understand that, but I'm saying that you could have easily been your old man all over again.
Oh, absolutely.
That is the one thing that haunts us as we grew up as adults, and I was the same way. I vowed that I would not be like my father.
Yeah.
And yet there's still. Do you find this? This is for me, and it might not apply to you. Do you find as you get older that there are some elements of your father that kind of creep in and show themselves quietly or unconsciously from time to time, as far as an action or an attitude or a perspective or just something even small and insignificant, but you go, oh my God, that's my dad.
yeah, I mean, just for a long time, and this is probably well into my 30s, I was just, I wasn't on any kind of medication for mental health, and I was just always upset. I mean, I had to struggle for everything, and it just seemed like I knew people who just would fall ass backwards into lucky situations, and it just really pissed me off, and I was like that all the time. Eventually I got to doing antidepressants, and if you want to talk about that later, we can, because again, I'm trying not to.
I don't want you to think about.
Okay,
I just want you to talk whatever on your brain. Don't
So
worry
you literally
about.
just chop this up and then
No,
throw it together?
I'm not going to chop it up. I'm saying that
Oh,
you
okay.
can speak as freely as you want. Let me navigate the rest of it. Don't worry about it.
As you
Don't-
wish.
I don't want you to worry about what order anything's going to be in. I want you to speak what you feel, and we'll cover all
Yeah.
the bases before it's all said and done. If this was my first podcast, maybe I'd say, wait a second, let's wait and go back. But no, this dude, I love what you're saying, and I'm literally hanging on every word right now. So
Greg will cut
don't
this
edit
part
yourself. Don't edit yourself. Is what I'm trying to say.
Greg will cut this part out, but
this
the
part out.
YouTube version, the YouTube version, you'll see it all.
When I started comedy, that I felt like that negativity went with me into doing that, and it did for several years. And when my son's mother and I had broke up, and she had moved out, I really started to pack on weight because at the time I had lost a bunch of weight, almost 200 pounds, and then I met her. And I did that by, I won't say starving myself, but kind of close to it. I would make sure I ate 2 chicken breasts a day and then maybe a bag of grapes, and then that would be it. And then I worked out, and, I was working 2 jobs on top of that, and I was sleeping maybe 4 hours a night. So I just wanted to get the weight off of me and then, try to live my life. So
Was the weight when I say that, was the weight emotionally? When you lost the weight, did some of the emotional weight disappear as well, or not?
I would say it lessened somewhat. It never went away, that was for sure. But yeah, when she had decided that it wasn't working out, which happened on my birthday, that was fun.
Thank you.
I felt, on one hand, I was relieved in that I was afraid I would ruin my son if I was around all the time. Like I didn't want that. Like my father, I was afraid that I would fuck this up somehow. Sorry. Is it right to say whatever?
It's fine.
No, it's fine.
Okay,
It's
all
fine.
It's fine. But I do appreciate the fact that the two comedians are
You're beating up on
are
them.
doing callbacks.
Right. Beep that out. Yeah.
We're not bleeping that out.
Yeah. So I had piled on weight, and then I eventually got up to 603 pounds. And I was doing a show in Illinois, and as I was going on stage, the MC, who had been at this way longer than I had, and they were usually a headliner, but they were home for the week, decided to come down the stairs at the same time I was going up. And just as a comic, you never leave an empty stage.
No.
You wait till the other guy gets up there.
Right.
So I pivoted, and then went to go step. My left knee just snapped,
Oh my God.
and I crashed to the stage. And at first everybody laughed because I
Yeah,
thought,
the crowd thought it was part of the act.
yeah, I'm like, I'm not Chris Farley. I'm not going to somersault in here and then start throwing pies at people. But I managed to pull myself up onto this stool. I did my set.
Oh my God.
I still hawked my T-shirt.
It's still merchandised.
Yes, and then I met the paramedics at the edge of the stage, and they took me to the hospital. They said I had torn my meniscus. They gave me a set of crutches, sent me back. The next night I go to the club and tell them, I can't go up on stage tonight. It's just not going to work. And then he said, what if you just sit on the edge of the stage and do your act? And I thought, yeah, I guess I could. I don't see any reason why not. And then I'm not used to walking with crutches. It was a new experience for me. So when it was my time to get up, I got up, and then the same knee had buckled again. Only this time my right foot was caught underneath me, and I could feel everything on my knuckle on my ankle just rip like a zipper. So the paramedics came back, and
You're a frequent flyer.
yeah, at that point I was, and they took me back, and there's really nothing I could do, So I tried to drive home. I made it as far as Indianapolis, where another comic I knew came and met me and filled up my car for me because I couldn't go into the gas station. It was too much. But I was pretty much confined to a couch for the next month after that because I just couldn't put any weight on my knees whatsoever. And the knee and then my right ankle were just black and blue. Like I'd never seen such a deep shade of purple before. So eventually I got some steroid shots, was able to recover enough that I still had to walk with the crutches, but I think I became psychologically dependent on them, and that I was afraid to take them away and fall again because I had already had 2 bad falls. And that started the road towards getting weight loss surgery.
I remember those days.
And then after that happened is when I, met the woman I'd eventually marry. And then at that point, because where are we at? So with my surgery that I got, I lost inside of 12 months because they had me come back one year to the day, 267 pounds.
It's a person.
And I was down at 299 pounds at that point because I was like 586 or something the day of the surgery.
It's crazy.
And then 2 months later, I had officially lost over 300 pounds. I think I got all the way down to 240. And I was working out because I didn't have a job right then, and I wasn't performing hardly at all. I mean, I was working out like 5 hours a day. I would go in the morning for 2 hours, then again at night for 2 hours, sometimes longer. And I just punished my body. All I could think of was get it off, get it off, get it off, keep going. So when I met my wife, I still wasn't doing antidepressants or anything. We get married. Then a couple of years later, I'm working for Verizon. I'm working at a call center, which is rough. Nobody ever calls in and say, "Hey, you guys are doing great." That never happens. Every call's like, "You motherfucker," all the time.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
And I would walk out of there after 8 hours, just ready to deck somebody. And then I'd go home, but I never had that space to like calm down, to like let go of all that negative energy. It would just, pile and pile and pile. And in 2018, they said, gave us an option. We can either lay you off or you can go work at home. There was no other choice. You couldn't stay at the center. They were going to close it down.
When did you start to do the medication? When was the medication?
So I tried something. I tried several. And then I found one that kind of worked a little bit. And the doctor's like, "Well, I mean, are you feeling happy at all?" And I'm like, "Well, what does that feel like?"
What's that like? Yeah.
She's like, "Let's go ahead and increase it again." And
Which
so
one
now,
was it? You're talking to somebody who's also been on antidepressants. So,
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not a stranger to it. Which one was it?
the one that works for me is Effexor.
That's the one I was on.
Oh, okay.
I was on an elephant dose of that at the height of my depression.
I am on the maximum dosage allowed by law,
Which is, yeah.
225 milligrams.
Right.
Yes.
So was I.
Yeah.
See, who knew we had so much in common?
I had no idea. No
Oh
idea.
my God! Yeah.
So-
that was the only one that worked for me, but it made me so ambivalent.
Mm-hmm.
That was the side effect for me. It was like it got me off the couch.
Emotional dumbing or something like
But
that.
yeah,
Blunting, emotional
yeah,
blunting.
My girlfriend at the time that was on it says when you were on that was the best our relationship has ever been because you agreed with everything.
Of course.
You agreed with everything. You had no opinion.
Whatever, honey. That's
Yeah,
fine.
whatever. That sounds good.
That
whatever.
sounds like a great idea.
You're not lying, too. One night, I was like, "Hey, you want to get a dog?" She's like, "You don't like dogs." I'm like, "Nah, let's get a dog," because I knew she wanted a dog.
Right.
And then we ended up getting 2 dogs.
Oh, no.
Yeah, which I'm now a dog person. I love them. Even if I come in the house and I'm in a bad mood, almost immediately that disappears.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm much more agreeable about things.
Yeah. Are you still on the Effexor as we speak?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and at this point, I think they're looking to try to throw something on top of that, maybe just to keep this gravy train rolling, I guess.
A nice cocktail. something.
Well, no,
Right.
they talk about, you see commercials for it all the time where they, I'm on this medication.
Used in
but they give me
conjunction
this one,
with.
They go to elevate that one. I mean, I'm not on any as we speak anymore. I recently tried to go, when I clicked all the boxes at my physical, they tried to put me on one that was, I said this on the podcast before, that was supposed to help me with my depression, also help me lose weight, also help me quit smoking. And I gained weight, I smoked more, and I wasn't any less depressed. And I go, the well in Wellbutrin is a misnomer.
Yeah, I didn't like
Dried
that
up.
either. I didn't do well on that either. It was really
No
the
offense
effects
to
were.
Wellbutrin. If you take it and it works for you, God bless. It just didn't.
We're looking for a sponsor, by the way, Wellbutrin.
I just feel like a much better person. Even the other day when I was at work, some asshole called in and was just screaming and yelling at me. And he went on for like 6 minutes. And then he stopped and I said, "My name's Bill. How can I help you?" And I was calm the whole time. I didn't, because it used to be I would get sucked into the emotion of a call.
Right.
And I think one time when I was at Verizon, and like I said, it's like 7 or 8 years ago, this guy was both barrels blazing right out of the gate. And then finally I leaned down in my cubicle and I was like, "Listen, I have your address and your credit card information. Let's take it down a notch and let's work together to figure this out." And I'm lucky that nobody audited the call. I would have got thrown right out.
I thought all those calls were on.
Yeah.
Your calls are being recorded and so forth
for
and so on. I always
education.
hear that disclaimer. Whenever.
Yeah, and I didn't have access to his credit card information, but
I know you
he
didn't.
doesn't know that.
Yeah,
But it's just, people, it's with that was customer service everywhere. People are just assholes all the time.
Well, I gotta say, I want to get this in too because if you have not seen Bill on your YouTube videos or your Instagram videos, you need to. It's a treat. It's a daily treat. I look forward to them. But my favorite ones are the dash cam videos. That you do in the car, and and some of them are vocationally related. And I sit there and wonder, like, obviously nobody at work knows that he does these because they are so biting at times that they make, they're not first of all they don't besmirch wherever he works. It's just observations about where he works, which is fine, but they're so funny and they're so true.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I had a supervisor at one point that said, "Hey, I saw your video." And I was like, "Oh, here we go."
Yeah.
He's like, "No, it's fine. You're good. Don't worry about it." I said, "Okay, great." Now, he didn't see the one from Christmas. That I was in rare form that day.
Oh God.
Because, they went to all this trouble. We had a quote-unquote holiday party.
Right.
The first hour of it, they moved our lunches to that hour, so we didn't get paid for the first hour of the party.
Oh, that's bullshit.
We got paid for like the next hour and a half after that. But at the end, and then the only thing, like we had Chipotle as far as food goes, which is fine, I guess. And so at the very end, they gave everyone gift-wrapped, gifts. And, they had your name on it and everything. Then you open it up, and everybody got the exact same thing. It was a cheap nylon bag, and there were like a handful of tchotchkes in here.
Nice.
One of which was a magnetic clip. And this is the third time I've got this clip since working there. And I just went off. Like I made a video about it right as soon as I got out of work. I went right in my car and made it.
You're in the parking lot still.
On
There's a lot of
TikTok.
genius in that front seat. Let me tell you that right now, people. You need to check them out. Go ahead.
TikTok, I got like 194,000 views on it.
Nice.
And then they shut it down, which, is par for the course. But I like doing the videos. Most of the time, I usually get a lot of positive feedback from it. Every once in a while, you get some asshole who's like, "Well, at least you got something." And I'm like, "Do you want this? Do you really want this?" and the thing is, they didn't have to give us anything. In fact, I would have preferred it because it sends the same message, but without all the effort behind it.
Right.
I mean, if you went to a dollar store, this would have cost about $7 with tax. I mean, it was awful. Every year they do a customer service appreciation week, and I'm not in customer service, but I deal with customers now and again. So one of the days was supposed to be 80s Day. So one of the things we got that day, they said, "Hey, you're going to get a Lunchable from Mom."
I've seen this.
And I thought, all right, well, maybe there's a new place around here called Mom's Lunchables or something. Or maybe one of these ding-dongs opened up a catering business. It was a paper bag with a fucking Lunchable in it.
Oh, an Oscar Mayer Lunchable.
And the pizza one, which is the worst one of all. And it was all I could do to just maintain my calm. And I'm like, I'm not even going to think about the $23 billion in profit we made last year. I got a fucking Lunchable. And again, as soon as I got to my car, I'm like, bah, just did another video about it. It was ridiculous. Just, teach us like kids. You don't have to treat us like that. Just, get us a lunch every day for a week, and then that's it. We don't need to dress up like the 70s one day and the 80s the next. And of course, I never dress up as any of it. I just wear my normal shit to work. We have executives coming tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to be dressed up. I'm wearing the same shit I wore today, except a different color polo shirt. That's it. That's all the effort I'm going to put into it.
So what I'm hearing is that while you have progressed and grown as a human being in respects to jobs, life, family, etc., there's still some of Bill Arrundale.
Oh, yeah.
Hardcore comic that just won't fucking leave the premises on any given day.
They told us today that when the executives are here, there's like 4 VPs that are coming tomorrow. And they're going to pick people at random, and one of them will sit with you and then ask you questions. And so I'm hoping that one will sit with me, and I'll say, hey, before we get started, I want to tell you, I started losing my hearing about 7 years ago, so I wear hearing aids. So if I ask you to repeat something, I'm not ignoring you, probably, but the hearing aids, they're old. I would love to get a new pair, but of course our insurance doesn't cover it. Yeah. Because why would you need to hear when you communicate with people for a living?
Right.
Now, what questions can I answer for you?
Oh my God. We're getting close to wrapping up here, and there's
Oh, geez, I feel like we just...
it just started.
Yeah, like we didn't really talk about the kid that much, but I mean, whatever you want to do to wrap things up, that's fine. I can always
come
come
on
back
part
another
2.
time.
We can come back another time. But
Yeah,
you're
that's
right.
fine.
You know what? You make a good point. We did not finish up with the kid because we went down a different stream that goes into the same river. So your kid right now, you're very proud of your kid.
Yeah.
Your kid wrestles.
Well, he did. He in 7th grade, he went and joined the wrestling team. Then he told me that he did that. I had no idea he was going to. So, but he showed an affinity for it. He did very well. And then for like the next 10 years, during the winter season, probably twice a month, I would have to drive all the way up to Northeast Ohio and sit in some smelly-ass gymnasium for up to 12 hours, sometimes more.
Oh, God.
And we'll watch him. And he was great. It was my pleasure to do it. I loved it. It definitely kind of brought us together a bit,
Traveling sports dad, yeah.
Yeah,
I have friends that do it for volleyball and lacrosse, and you.
Well,
did it
I want to
wrestling,
clarify that. So a sports dad, but I keep my mouth shut. There's nothing I hate more than someone sitting next to me who's never wrestled, and they're just yelling shit out at the kid who can't even hear them, by the way. Yeah. And I'm like, look, lady, I'm sure your son appreciates all the wrestling advice. I got a feeling you don't know what you're talking about. Let the coach do his job. And I've even had there was a woman next to me who was doing the same thing. Turns out her kid was wrestling my kid, and my kid beat him. So I was ecstatic. I never stood a word. So in that fact, I could never be one of those people who argue with the ref and do all that. I just could never do it. It's in my opinion, it's such the worst example for your kid.
Yeah, it kind of does, but I get it. I run across those parents as well, and my friends continue to run across those parents. What does your son think of what you do comedically speaking?
I mean, he's always liked it. He's seen me on stage several times. He likes stand-up comedy himself. I mean, he would never do it, but he's a big fan of Norm Macdonald. So when he told me that, it's like your kid telling you they like your favorite band.
Yeah,
You're like, oh, great.
That's my boy.
Yeah.
He likes Norm Macdonald.
Have you ever heard Boston?
Because I still have I actually have chronic knee pain from arthritis. So being in a car for that long and then sitting in those bleachers that long, it was brutal. But I mean, I never missed one. If it was something I could make it to. But he went to John Carroll on a scholarship, graduated, and now he coaches his own team at Orange High School up near Solon, I think. Pepper Pike is where it is. Very well-to-do area, and he's the head coach of a team up there. And he's working for a company that does something with grants for small companies.
How old's your son now?
He's 20. He'll be 24 next month.
When did that happen?
Yeah, and he's already doing better than I am. And I said,
dude, You said earlier in the podcast that your father wanted life to be better for you than it was for him.
Yeah.
And I think that if there's one thing that does, if there's a father or a parent that actually thinks that way, if there is something that transfers over genetically speaking, it's the same thing. I wanted the best. I wanted better for my daughter than I had for myself. We all want what's better for our kids.
It's
and
that
what we had.
generational,
We just want
incrementally
them to
better.
Increase.
And then they do better at you at 24. You're like, I didn't think it would be that quick. I thought maybe 28, 29, but not 24. Yeah, or,
No.
you know.
No, I get it. My niece graduated law school, and she's in her mid 20s, and I don't want to bust her out, but I think in her mid to late 20s, she's making six figures.
Yeah.
As a lawyer.
Probably.
You got to pay for that.
Yeah,
pay for
yeah.
that.
But she pays $12,000 a month for
Okay,
student
but
loans.
still, were any of you making six figures at 20?
No, that's why we want to talk it
mid-20s?
down. That's why we're
You're doing an Arrundale. You're demeaning her success. Exactly. You're demeaning it.
makes me feel bigger.
Yeah, I told my son, I'm like, that's why I set such a low bar all of your life. Because I wanted you to do better. And I didn't think it'd be that easy.
Oh my gosh. I mentioned that you should check out. Tell us real quick how people can find and check you out, because I want you to, if you never checked out his videos, or maybe you're a fan and already do, but if you haven't, if you want to laugh, because it's direct and straight to the point and it never fails to deliver. How can people find you in that respect?
I mean, I'm on all my social media as Bill Arrundale. Facebook, Instagram.
Arrundale with a U, not like Arrundale like the dog.
Right, Arrundale.
Because I spell it in my phone. My phone it's spelled like the dog, and I have to fix that.
Oh, everybody mangles it.
Is
like
it
people-
Arrundale like Lord of the Rings? Arrundale?
Yes, actually,
Or,
I did. Yeah.
Is it Frozen? There might be an Arrundale in Frozen too. As the millennial who has a 10-year-old daughter.
I'm gonna nip that quickly before you guys go down a rabbit hole that we don't have time for.
Right.
Fresh batteries. Let's go.
And then on YouTube, if you look for Bill Arrundale, you'll see my channel. Please subscribe, even if you never watch a single video, because I'm trying to get the numbers up on that. And
Are you trying to figure out the algorithm, Bill?
I can't.
Me either can we.
I
It's a
would
mystery.
put a video on.
Sumac
YouTube.
seems to know. Sumac knows everything. I don't think Sumac tells us everything that he knows.
I think my most popular video
Job
on
security.
YouTube maybe has 7,000 views, but that same video on Instagram has 35,000 views. And then it's like the Christmas thing.
Right.
I had a couple hundred on YouTube. I get 194,000 on TikTok.
That's a lot.
And it just makes no sense.
There's no rhyme or reason.
But I tell you this: if I had a channel where all I did was just fall down the stairs, different stairs, different buildings, different countries,
Different
I
injuries.
would have 5 million people.
5 million people, you'd be making money.
Absolutely.
You'd be making money.
You keep
Huge
getting
amounts of
reports.
money,
You
yeah.
keep getting reports that say
Oh my
they're
God. I know,
watching your
it's
video
like-
on a loop, Bill. Congratulations.
It's funny. We're all sitting here. We're all fairly well-educated adults, and we know that statement is while it's very funny, it's also very true.
It's sad.
And then we're sitting here and we're not doing it. We're not
Football
doing
in the
something
grind.
idiotic
Yeah.
to make the money. We know how to make the money. It's just to what point do you want to push yourself in order to make it? Do you want to fall down steps and be the fall down the step guy?
I see people and I'm like, your success absolutely baffles me. Just because you eat something out of a garbage can, people are now you're working comedy clubs. I mean, it doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
We talked about that with Sumac on the show. Yeah, that the very thing.
But he inspired me to do the YouTube video.
Yes,
Yeah.
as well he should have, and I'm glad he did. He's the quiet man, as we called him on the podcast.
Consummate professional.
Is
Yeah.
a consummate professional, but he's very wise and very smart. And shout out to Sumac. Speaking of comedy, you mentioned this off the podcast, but we'll bring it up. Bill was one of the roasters, which I'm coming up on, and Swartout sends me, Danny, Swarty sends me an anniversary notation every year. I can't believe it was 10 years ago that we did the roast. I can't believe it was 15 years ago that we did the roast. And now this year he'll send me another one saying, I can't believe it was 16 years ago that we did the roast at the Funny Bone, which was probably the greatest 50th birthday any man could ever ask for. Sure. It was amazing. And Bill Arrundale was one of the roasters.
We're looking for the videotape still.
We don't have to look for the videotape. I have a box of DVDs upstairs.
We're not looking for it. We're looking for it.
I have it, but in true fashion, and one of the moments that I laughed out loud the loudest was when you were on stage, and if I could indulge you to recall because it does involve drinking, if you will, and whatnot.
Yes, I had mentioned that your liver was so black that it was dating a Kardashian. And Dino's liver's so black it got pulled over on the way here tonight by the cops. And then my favorite one was Vince Morris, who I understand is going to come on here soon. Vince was a comic, African American guy who, got a lot of other comics stage time. And I said that your liver was so black that Vince was trying to get his stage time this Thursday night. Which he really, as I'm telling it, I'm like looking over at him like that, trying to make sure that he's
howling.
Yeah,
he's howling. Yeah,
he was cool with it. Yeah,
he was very cool with it. I mean,
but I love doing the roast. I got to write some for Jeff Ross.
Yeah, that's right.
I actually got one of them on the air for the Charlie Sheen roast.
Oh, nice. Which one?
And it was I don't remember the exact wording, but basically it was the only time that Charlie's wife seemed like she was bright was when he hit her in the face with the lamp.
Oh my God!
That was the one that got on. But for like 10
Ross?
years, I'd send him jokes, and every once in a while he would write back about it. But he had a whole team of people who send him jokes, and and then he'll take things and rework it and add to it and make it a completely different joke by the time it gets to air. But I really love doing those. It's my favorite thing to do.
You're a writer, you think? More
I think so.
a performer?
I'm certainly more open to it now that I'm older, but I've even thought maybe for my 55th birthday this year in November, maybe doing something. There's just a lot of local bridges that I would like to burn once and for all. Just in a roast. That would be really great.
I understand that, but and do that if it brings you joy and satisfaction. But I'm just going to say this based on just this podcast alone, the conversation that we've had this evening. I really hope you go back and continue to develop the idea you had about doing a show talking about, with humor and with sincerity, some of the things we talked about tonight, because I think that a lot of things we discussed this evening, people are going to be quietly nodding their heads and saying, yeah. I think there's a lot of things in there that will translate and people will identify with, and also in your own fashion be entertained by how you present it, with a mix of humor and pathos together. The two can, comedy and tragedy. The Greeks know something about that. That's what it's all about, and to be able to mix the two together properly would be outstanding. And I think
the longer form, long form story.
You should do it.
I've even considered just writing it all down and.
It's got to start somewhere. Then
formatting it as a book or something. I don't know, but.
So let me ask you one more question before we go, and we do have to go. Aristotle said to perceive, which I think you have done very well in your adult years, perceiving and the perception. To perceive, Aristotle says, is to suffer. Plato said that all knowledge is recognition, recognizing what you've been through in life. And Kelly Clarkson said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
And Socrates said, I drank what?
Socrates never wrote a book.
Well, there weren't really a lot of books back then, were there?
But he never wrote anything down.
Oh, okay.
He actually never wrote anything in his life. Yeah. Anyway, sidebar, little commentary there. It was Plato. It was Plato who wrote it all about Socrates. But Socrates never wrote a goddamn word down himself. And yet, Here we go.
He's gone viral.
My point is,
It's like me writing a book about everything you say,
the
Dino.
best. You're right.
You
The
know?
best
That's
revenge in life, they say, is happiness. So, given the fact that Aristotle says to perceive is to suffer, and all knowledge is recognition, where are you in life as we leave this podcast tonight, Bill Arrundale?
I wouldn't quite say the lion in winter, but I'm definitely at a different point now as far as comedy. You know, the days of me driving overnight to from here to Ocala, Florida, those days are over. That's
They're
never
done.
going to happen. If it does, I won't be able to walk for a week. I mean, it's too much. So I'm really just looking to, I'm doing some shows locally, or like within the surrounding area. And so far, for now, at least for the time being, that's good enough for me to do some local things, to make the videos, put them online, try to build some sort of following.
Does that satisfy it? Whatever that is that comics need?
It helps. It helps. But I see a lot of comedians, not necessarily locally, but some local perhaps, who, they believe they're the king of all they survey because they're a huge hit in this 4-mile radius.
Right.
Columbus.
I get it. Yeah.
But I've done the time. I've performed coast to coast. I performed in Canada.
In all fairness, though, wasn't there a time in your life where you also thought you were the king of the 4-mile?
I would say so. I mean, at the
radius?
time,
I mean, we all had that moment where we thought, like, this is it. I'm it.
yeah, there was a time where this was, I don't want to say it was my scene, but it was a scene that I
Sure.
was in. And then I take time away from that to live life, I guess.
Yeah.
And then you start looking back and you're like, I don't know any of these people. I don't know any of them. I don't know these new places they're going to, or it's completely foreign to me now. And sometimes I'll get an email, do you want to do a show? And I'm like, well, when is it? They're like 10 o'clock. And I'm like, at night? I don't want to do a 10 o'clock show on a Tuesday night. There's just no way.
No.
If I didn't have a job, sure.
Yeah.
But there's just no way. Even now, as late as this is,
What time is it?
it's 9:15.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm usually in bed at this point, or seriously considering it. I might be on the can, reading the paper or something. But getting ready for bed is the point. But yeah, it's just taken on a new, I guess, a new parameter.
Sure.
As to what is acceptable.
The
and what
parameters
isn't.
change.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because when you start out, you're like, I'm going to be the next big thing, and then eventually you realize I'm not. But I'm okay with just being here and being what I am and performing and just making people laugh. And I've had the best experiences being a comedian. No matter what city I was in, you get somebody comes up to you after a show, you're like, my dad's in hospice care, he's on his way out. I really needed this. And that's, that's just fantastic to hear. And you're glad you could help somebody else feel better.
Right.
Even if it's just for a little bit. Because you went a long time without having that. So you appreciate it.
Absolutely.
That's where I'm at now.
Good. Well, they say that the best revenge in life is happiness, because there's a lot of people who quietly don't want to see you happy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad you're happy. And thank you so much for being here tonight,
Thank you.
man. I appreciated this. Bill Arrundale, everybody. Thank you so much. We had some technical difficulties, but it was a Jen that brought over the batteries, John Whitney.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Jen, for saving us. Greg Hansberry on the audio side, John Whitney on the video side, Chip Cosell, who you did not see tonight, but he's here in good voice on all the other sides. Thank you, Chip.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right, our guest, Bill Arrundale. Check him out on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you can find him. You'll love him. My name is Dino Tripodis. Until the next bottle, see ya.